there's a history and a train wreck of incredible companies Australian businesses that have scaled and grown within healthcare. And there aren't many Australian-owned companies left. We're probably one of the largest in complementary medicine that's Australian-owned. The initial reason for wanting to start into this industry was so holistic and organic, but I didn't have the skills or the tools or the relationships or the money to do. I started my own search for selfish reasons, looking into food-based medicines, looking at lots of weird and wonderful diets. I'm incredibly stubborn and I never give up. And there's never been a single problem that I haven't been able to solve. You've got to be able to add value without, forcing your opinion on people. But it's also a fine line because there's no room for arrogance either in business. Rather than bring in corporates from big companies now that we can afford to hire them, it's about the right personality, the right culture, the right mission for what they want to do with their business function. For me and for all of our staff, I think it comes back to knowing who you want to be in the business and remembering that mission. A mission statement isn't just a line, a tagline. It's really got to be something that you live every day.
Welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. Hey guys, before we get started today, we just want to take a quick moment to thank one of our sponsors, TraffTrack. If your traffic control, construction, or security crews are still juggling manual check-ins, scheduling, and resource deployment, you're leaving productivity on the table. TraffTrack's app automates shift assignments and timesheets in seconds. Visit trafftrack.com to see why over 1,000 industry professionals rely on it every day. And thanks again to TraffTrack for supporting The Business Game.
So hello and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. My name is Lisa DeAngelis. I am your host for today. And we are joined today in studio by Blair Norfolk. Hi, Blair. Nice to have you in studio with us.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Lovely. Now, Blair, before we get started, could you give our audience a little bite-sized snippet? Who you are, what you do, where are you joining us from today?
Challenging question for any startup founder, I think. But in a bite-sized snippet, my name's Blair. I'm the founder and managing director of Biome Australia, which is listed on the ASX, ticker code BIO. And we are the disruptor in the healthcare space. We are one of the first innovators within the world of targeted or precision probiotics. So those are probiotic listed medicines.
Awesome. Lovely. Now, before we're going to get into all the operational insights of your business. But first, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you personally. So can you share who or what from your childhood kind of led you, shaped how you think about growth and success today, led down this path for you?
I had a very interesting childhood. My father was many things, but one of them was a food chemist. So there was a lot of experiments that went on in the kitchen. Some failed, some successful, but I think that always led the inquisitive young mind into the science realm and the idea of products for health, certainly originally based from a founding in food as medicine as well. So I think that early age introduction from my father into formulating products led my interest down the path to later life rediscovering that passion and applying it to the healthcare industry.
Yeah, awesome. So you've been in this industry for 13 years, is that correct?
Yeah, about 13, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And in that time, the experience of founding Biome Australia, career moments that are highlights, what do you consider if you look back over those 13 years, what stands out to you?
Look, it's been a long journey. There's been some very clear, stepping stones or time points or periods in the business where we made major leaps as well. Before Biome, I had another company called Health Science Innovation, which became the IP that was rolled into Biome in 2018 when we founded it. So starting in 2013, my journey started, like many people in health, trying to solve my own problems.
Yep.
So I had a number of autoimmune diseases. The prognosis or the advice I was getting from mainstream doctors and medical professionals was a life on immunosuppressants and steroids. And it doesn't take a smart person to work out that that's not going to lead to good long-term health outcomes, suppressing your immune system and taking lots of steroids. So I started my own search for selfish reasons, looking into food-based medicines, looking at lots of weird and wonderful diets. And then fast forwarding to when life really changed for the business, which was we found the gut microbiome and we decided that rather than to create another business in this space, a crowded space of complementary medicines, we wanted to really do something different. And what was different about what we wanted to do was clinical research. So we went down a rabbit hole of understanding unique strains of bacteria, how they can be applied to different conditions or diseases, and make really significant, health products that will change people's lives. And I think when you have something that can really help, not just be a marketing story, then the brand can carry itself on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really inspiring story. How is that all? I mean, it led you down this path and now you've built this incredible career out of it. Proof that sometimes when things go wrong or they seem like they're going badly, you kind of end up in the right place at the end anyway.
Yeah, look, we all need motivation, don't we? But I think for me, it's also been a journey of growth, like with all startup founders into public company CEOs. It's not a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
And what helps you as a founder won't help you necessarily as a ASX CEO. So
Right.
there've been these different transitions that I've had to sort of learn and put myself through, from being a gung-ho young guy who wants to sell and potentially maybe when in your 20s, maybe oversell a little bit some of the opportunities of the business or what you expect you can achieve. But then, taking that learner mindset to continually take the lessons as positives rather than negatives where you're getting beaten up, but really learn about, well, no one's going to give it to you. And yes, this idea that you have to sort of take it within your industry, but taking it is learning lessons and building relationships, building trust. Our industry in healthcare
Mm-hmm.
is all about trust. We work with doctors, pharmacists, naturopaths, and our product it's a professional range. So it's actually recommended by them. So trust for us means so much more than it would for, a vitamin company that's in more FMCG healthcare. So that transition's been really important, from startup founder to, running a, successful small business, to going through an IPO and leading the company through an IPO, to then now, 4 years running a public company and learning how you need to communicate to ASX investors.
Yeah, incredible. I guess on that note, also that journey of going from being a startup founder to where you're at now in your business, what was something that you failed at some time in your business? Something important that you failed at? What lessons it taught you about decision making, resilience, how you resolved it? What comes to mind?
Oh, honestly, I failed at everything. And I think the one core thing that's driven me through is I'm incredibly stubborn and I never give up. And there's never been a single problem that I haven't been able to solve.
Love that.
And, whether it was, the times that my CFO sat me down, and I'll be really clear, years ago, prior to our IPO,
Yeah.
when we were a startup and we were running lean on cash. And I'd say 3 or 4 times I had that sit down chat saying, we're going to have to let the staff know on Monday that we're closing up shop and it's all done. And, the amount of times the back's been up against the wall, and that's always been my drive and motivation to go and solve impossible problems.
Yeah, right.
So never admitting defeat, and always, not resilience is, you can be a frustrating or irritating person trying to solve a problem in the wrong way, but solving it in the right way by just keeping a positive mentality and making sure that you exhaust every alternative and every option before, admitting defeat. So I think that's sort of been the core to it, being able to solve problems. I mean, what is business at the end of the day? I guess it's a set of problems that need solving before it becomes sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the core philosophy behind this podcast, actually, that exact thing. Someone out there has got the answer that is, to the bottleneck in your business right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess on that note also, you've had a massive few years financially. So your revenue from the financial year 2020 grew from about 800K to 18.4 million in the financial year of 2025. Yep. So what year was the biggest inflection point, and what sort of strategic decisions or investments drove that leap?
So we do everything very conservatively, but we do lots of things conservatively, and that multiplier effect of lots of really well thought out plans that are, measured, has led us to significant growth multiplied over many years. So we have a very clear identity, a very clear mission. We know who we are. We are not trying to compete with anyone else. We've created and carved out our own space within the healthcare market. Our products don't have any direct competition. We have a lot of indirect competition from other probiotics, from vitamin brands, from other healthcare players. But we've got a strategy, which is we position the products as professional. They're practitioner only. They sit behind the counter. We made a very early decision. We were not going to play with discounts or deals.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably the first brand in our space that doesn't do deals or discounts. So it's a hard line that the product is a solution. We're providing an outcome. We're not going to start to be measured on price.
Right.
The price is the price. It either works for you or it doesn't. But when you're purchasing an outcome, the price doesn't become as important anymore anyway. So we sort of removed that from the purchase decision. So we know who we are. I think a lot of businesses in our industry or in any industry, they get a little bit of success and then they start to deviate to chase the growth or chase the sales. They start to do deals. They start to lose control of their brand. They start to go into channels that they can't control brand anymore. Mm-hmm. So we've really managed brand really well. Our brand, Activated Probiotics, is now number 2 in revenue in pharmacy. We're number 1 in growth across the entire complementary medicine industry for 5 years running. And we've done it by staying true to who we are. We do everything through education rather than traditional marketing. We build trust and we do evidence. We do clinical trials and create evidence to justify our product rather than come up with the best marketing idea.
Right.
Our approach is very long-term. But when you're in healthcare and you take a long-term view and you build a quality product based on scientific evidence, you invest in that evidence, it's a matter of time until you succeed. So I think we witnessed probably the year where we jumped up from 7 to 13 million. So FY24,
mm-hmm.
So the financial year before last, we almost doubled. I think we grew 80% that year. From a reasonable base, like 7 million in sales in our market is significant because there's only really 4 or 5 companies that are turning over really big revenue that have significant shelf space. So it was sort of that breakout year going from a small business. There's probably 20 or 30 companies turning over 1 to 5 million, but breaking out, passing 10, the magic number of 10 million in sales and becoming a really significant company is when I would say that was a big inflection point where other CEOs of the multi-billion-dollar companies started talking about us, where, people kept trying to compete with us
mm-hmm.
and, copycat brands and products started coming along. So it was really that validation for us that we're doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they can't compete is because they don't understand what drives us.
Right.
And what drives us? One thing, the patient that is getting the outcome. Our competitors are trying to sell products. They're trying to do deals. We don't get involved in that. We find the best outcome for the patient. We deliver that outcome. And that's not something you can replicate, that mission of why we do what we do.
For sure. A great ethos. And I suppose also on that note, I guess that means as well that you're not especially concerned about when people do, find a copycat product coming out. Is it, I don't know, do you feel ever disappointed about it? Is it satisfying? What does that feel like when you realize that you are leading the herd?
I've got to be honest, I'm a startup founder, so everything worries me and stresses me out.
Yeah.
There isn't anything that doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you stay up at night thinking and, strategizing on every possible scenario that could go wrong and your brain doesn't turn off. And that's the curse of not being a corporate CEO, being someone that really loves and is passionate about the outcome and the business, is that you can't switch off,
mm-hmm.
which is good and bad. But look, I mean, having to spend money on lawyers to defend the company from competitors, having to, invest in, things that will protect the business, such as new IP, there's pros and cons. Obviously, it gets more expensive to run a more successful business, as we all know. But yeah, look, I mean, it is a compliment, but you need to sometimes remind yourself that it's because we're doing it the right way. And I think I said to my staff, we took our sales team on our first international sales conference. We took them to Japan about a year ago and had a really lovely cultural experience in another market that is really prolific with customers using probiotics as interventions and medicines in Japan. And one of the things that came up, they're like, Blair, we've got the feedback from the sales team in the field was there's 3 other brands starting to try to position their products where ours are positioned, whereas we previously just owned this whole shelf behind the pharmacy when it comes to probiotics. And they're starting to target our style of packaging, which is very pharmaceutical oriented. It's medical grade aluminum blister packs rather than vitamin bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And, they are starting to use more microencapsulation technology. So all the things that have been our competitive advantage, competitors are trying to replicate one or two. And all I did is remind the team, remember why we do what we do. Remember that patient in the center. We are the smartest team. We have the best educators and we have the best knowledge. We're in an industry of trust. So they can look and feel like us, but they can't be us. And they can never compete with you if they can't be you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I guess for the clinical trials also, you've got the commercial need to scale, and then also clinical trials tend to take a long time. You've got these extended timelines. How do you reconcile those two things, the long timelines of clinical trials with the commercial need for scaling? You know, do you have an example of like a trade-off and the outcome you came
Yep.
to, or how does that affect your
It's a
business?
really, it's a really good question. I want to answer it from two perspectives. You've got the retailers, the big pharmacy chains or medical clinics that want more products. I said, you're growing 10 times the speed of anyone else. You're 8 to 10 times the growth of the category. We need more products.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to balance the need for what they want for short-term sales growth with managing quality and efficacy and making sure you don't just launch the wrong product just to get a short-term sugar hit
Right.
and then start to, break the business through reducing the quality of the outcomes or the patients that we're trying to help. So I guess the key answer is partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
So as a smaller business, we didn't have the financial or human resources to be able to engage in lots of clinical trials. We also acknowledge that, you can easily get lost in the world of biotech and spending tens of millions of dollars or more on research. To what end? If you don't commercialize it, why are you even doing it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have gotten very good at building partnerships with key universities in Australia. Melbourne, Monash, La Trobe, QUT are different universities that we speak with on any given week about new IP development, new clinical trials. We then have 6 or 7 key IP development partners overseas that we work jointly on research projects. Some of that research will already be 5 years in when we come in, and we'll just help them close it out and bring it to commercialization. Other ones we're there from the beginning, and we'll start the project and we'll bring them in to help us develop the research and or help us better understand the IP that we're trying to develop within different probiotic strains. So essentially, it's a bit of a mixed approach. We have longer term research projects and we have products that have already been studied for 10 years that we then go and get exclusive license on that IP. So the challenge is the other point that I said before, the health retailers want things and they want them every March or every June. And it doesn't always line up for us. So they'll say, look, we need another 4 products. You guys are doing so well. And we usually stick to our guns and say, we might have one thing, not 4. And it might be a month later than when you want it. And then it just becomes a negotiation. Well, put it in and fill the spot with another one of our products. And then when the product's ready, you can have it. So I think we do enough things conservatively, as I said before, that it builds up to lots of growth. Right. So we now have about 22 products in the portfolio, which is more than enough to continue that development journey. As things come out, we can launch them.
Yeah, awesome. And what's the process? What's your playbook for getting these clinically proven probiotics into 6,000 retail outlets? What sort of channels, KPIs, team roles moved the needles fastest for you?
Yeah. Internally, very complicated. Externally, it's actually quite streamlined now because I think your success starts to speak for itself. So we hold ourselves to a very high account when it comes to new product development. So new product development is essentially the standard operating procedure that every single person in the company touches. And I've just been redoing the SOPs for the board recently, so it's a good one to talk about. Yeah. So new product development starts with the new product development committee. They have a weekly meeting talking about research, IP development, or new products. We look at big drug categories that are high volume drugs. For example, we launched Biome Cholesterol last year, which is one of the world's first cholesterol reducing probiotics. Mm-hmm. It's got 5 clinical trials showing it significantly reduces cholesterol. Cholesterol, whether you adhere to the guidance of doctors or not, is the number one class of drugs. So statins are the number 1 and 2 by volume on the PBS in Australia. Mm-hmm. So they're the number 1 drugs by rebate and by prescription. So we have a product that is addressing a really high volume health topic, being reducing cholesterol. And that product is safe to use as a standalone in the clinical trial or as an adjunct or complement to the statin medication. So that product ticked a big box initially. So say, yes, big market, big medication market, no competitor products or limited competitor products, and we can be first to market. So tick number one, first to market. Number two, do we own it? So if we don't own it, we want to then go get exclusive license. We don't want to build a massive market and then have a major, major brand group like Unilever or someone like that come in and then try to just take the market from us. So protect the IP. Either it's ours or someone else's, we'll lock it down exclusively. And then it's got to be solving a significant health need or health concern of the community. How do we get health professionals excited to talk about our research or recommend our products if it's not solving a material health problem? So cholesterol is a unique example, but we have other products for asthma, mental health, female health conditions like bacterial vaginosis and thrush, acne, eczema. So, the list goes on of the different health conditions. So that process starts with the scientists. It then goes through me and the CFO to go negotiate it with our supply partners. We'll then test it out with our internal sales teams and marketing teams to make sure that they've got the right story to be able to build the education and enough science to be able to build really sophisticated educational resources. Then it goes into production. So it might not sound that complicated, but there's not that many things out there that we haven't already explored.
Yep.
So it is quite hard for us to get a new product to market with that strict process that we follow.
Yeah, right. And I guess on that note also, what kind of IP and regulatory hurdles did you face when you're expanding into Canada and into the UK, into Ireland? Do you have any advice for practical steps that founders who are interested in doing the same can take to avoid delays?
Absolutely. Don't do it.
Yeah, okay. You've heard it here first, folks. Just don't do it.
That's not my competitive take. That's the amount of stress and anguish. Dealing with the Australian complementary medicine or listed medicine market, complementary medicines, which are either vitamin, mineral supplements, or probiotics, are probably the big part that are made up of the listed medicine market under the TGA in Australia. There's a really clear framework. If you have clinical trials, you can list the products with claims. So there's a clear understanding for consumers or patients what the product should do. Mm-hmm. In other markets, it's not quite so straightforward. In Europe, these products are considered essentially food supplements, which means no health claims. You can't ever mention a health condition or a disease. And then in Canada, you've got Health Canada, which is a much more robust process as well. It took 2 years to get through Health Canada.
Wow.
With, I think 12 of 18 products so far.
Yeah, okay.
So the Australian market is a very friendly and appropriate regulatory framework. As a small growing business, taking on multiple regulatory frameworks in different markets is a big challenge. And the only reason I think we've managed to survive it is we've had very smart people that are quick learners.
Right. Yeah, awesome. My goodness. 2 years, you say, for 12 out of 18?
Yeah, and a number of them. So, our strategy, which I can't talk about too much on the Canadian market, is, get the products out quickly. But, some of the registration processes in Canada takes up 2 or 3 years for a single product.
Wow.
So it's almost like the drug world with the process that you have to go through and the type of evidence you have to share with the regulators. So, look, it's an interesting journey, but it's also a risk, mm-hmm. and it's a key business risk. So making sure that we get regs right is critical.
Yeah, right. And as far as the current healthcare industry and the culture in the industry, what would you say are the best and the worst aspects?
So I sit on 2 industry boards. One is Complementary Medicines Australia. We actually had our board meeting yesterday in Brisbane. The other is the International Probiotic Association. So it's really interesting living this life between 2 key parts of the industry. So the probiotic industry is much more aligned to biotech and pharma in that so they are natural products, but the amount of scientific evidence and clinical research that goes into probiotics is much more similar to the world of drugs. The outcomes are more disease specific, and it is a very science heavy field. The vitamin market, which makes up a big part of healthcare in Australia, certainly through pharmacies, is very different. I mean, you've got contract manufacturers and the brands are more driven by sales and marketing, which is completely fine. Mm-hmm. But it's a very different value set. So when you're speaking to one group of people, It's very much about patient outcome and solution. In other parts of the market, it's more driven by sales and marketing. And it's just a very different approach. Both approaches are really important. Building a business, you need great sales and marketing. But I think, as companies grow within healthcare, you've got to stay connected with your customer and your patient, because if you don't, then you may as well be an FMCG drink rather than a
Yeah.
healthcare product.
Yeah, right. And in terms of, you're obviously a public advocate for evidence-based complementary medicines. How do you handle clinician or consumer skepticism? What communication tactics have proven most persuasive? Have you come up against that a lot throughout the history of biome?
Oh, every day. I
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoy it, honestly, because
right.
when you've got randomized placebo-controlled double-blind clinical trials on your actual product,
Yeah.
it is and then it's peer-reviewed and independently peer-reviewed and published in a mainstream medical journal. It's quite enjoyable when you get a doctor that challenges it and you can sit down and say, here's the evidence. Then they look at you and say, well, you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to listen to you. That's fine. You're a doctor. You take your time to review the evidence.
Yep.
Come back to me with any questions. And then if you want someone a bit smarter than me to talk to who's on your level, I can set that up for you.
Yeah,
So
right.
don't take it from me. You trust it. You trust your own judgment on reviewing the dossier of clinical trials and evidence.
Yep.
Look, it is what it is. I mean, being that we are attached to the complementary medicine industry rather than the drug industry, it does come with skepticism. Although I think both sides of the market, whether you're a drug or a natural medicine, have both been under scrutiny for the last few years. Certainly post-COVID, there's been a lot of people questioning different pharmaceutical interventions, which I don't even have an opinion on. But what that's led to is consumers' desire for education.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be able to make up their own mind. People want to review the facts. So we see ourselves in a really nice position. It's a privileged position to be able to present the information and let people make their own decision.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting in a position where we know that if they review all the information, we probably win.
Yeah.
So it's a nice position to be in, having the evidence, having the research, having a product that's very low risk compared to everything else in our segment. Positions us really well. So it allows us to do our best to be really ethical with our education and training and say, here are all the scenarios, here's all the evidence, you make up your own mind. Obviously, we'd like it when people use our products. That's a good outcome. But we'd like them to make their own decision based on that education. So it's a very interesting part of the market to be in.
Hey guys, just wanted to do a quick shout out to our affiliate partner, OpusClip. If you need great video edits without hiring an editor, their AI engine turns your raw clips into share-ready content in under a minute, no skill required. Find our link in the description to support our show and get a great sign-up bonus. Create more, stress less with OpusClip.
What is one non-career related goal that you have for yourself that you'd like to happen in the near future?
Yeah.
How are you carving out time for it?
Yeah, well, it's the classic one. It's being a good dad.
Oh,
Proud father of two little girls.
Oh,
I've got a
lovely.
4-year-old and a 6-month-old, and they are my world. Father's Day this weekend on Sunday was incredibly magical day. It was the first Father's Day with the new one, and they're the reason why I do what I do, and they're also the reason why we do it ethically and with heart.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I a long time ago gave up the idea of building a business to build a business. That was where we started a long time ago, 13 years ago. We wanted to sell product to get revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't understand that people buy why you do what you do, not what you're selling. And, that classic Simon Sinek statement. And when kids come along, you start to question yourself, why am I spending so much time on this? And it's really helped inform really good, patient-centered decision-making around our strategy. And we've reminded ourselves, why do people love our products? Why do people love what we do? It's not because we're smarter than everyone else. It's because we care about the right things from our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And caring about the right things will inform strategic decisions. They might not be always the fastest decision, but they're long-term, and people will buy into it if you really care about the right things. And being a dad has been a perfect way for me to be a better business person as well, and to make sure that we always hire people that are on the same mission and journey as us. that we're a B Corp company. We keep that culture as one of the most important things that we, hold dear to our heart, because I want my little girls to be proud of me, and I want them to think that this horrible time that I take away from them when they just want me to be there is there is some value to it. It's not just for an income.
I mean, I think that actually answers the question that I was going to ask you when you said that, being a father. Also, congratulations on your first Father's Day with both your girls. I was going
Thank
to
you.
ask what, obviously you started with trying to solve your own problems, on this journey when you decided to launch Activated Therapeutics. And so you had these personal values, these personal goals in the very beginning. I'm curious about how that has changed, those goals or those values. Have they changed? Have they just solidified? What do you think?
I think it's gone full circle, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it started with really good intentions, but then the advice I got from people that, they were the right people at that time to be mentors. And that's probably the one thing that I haven't mentioned. Without mentors, I wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today. The company wouldn't be either. And picking those mentors really carefully, mentors that have your best interests at heart and are quite happy to offer you support and guidance without stepping in and being
Mm-hmm.
the one that needs to make the decision and the one that needs to get the accolade.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had experience of good and bad mentors. But I think I've got to a point where the initial reason for wanting to start into this industry was so holistic and organic, but I didn't have the skills or the tools or the relationships or the money to do. And then I kind of tried to become a business person without that foundation. I suppose that was lacking. And then going full circle back to the patient. I'm the patient. I'm patient X, and then living those values. And then I suppose moving forward, just reinforcing to myself that we can become a multi-billion-dollar company with those values. We don't have to create something that follows the rules and the pathway of the big companies before us. So, I see there's a history and a train wreck of incredible companies that Australian businesses that have scaled and grown within healthcare. Usually it ends in M&A. Most of them are bought out. And there aren't many Australian-owned companies left. We're probably one of the largest in complementary medicine that's Australian-owned. And that's something I'm quite proud of as well. And, what's consistently a theme is they get bigger, they start to make more corporate decisions, they get more corporate people. So, sorry, it's a long-winded way to answer the question, but rather than bring in corporates from big companies now that we can afford to hire them, we've really made a commitment to, similar to my journey, I've become the leader I've become through my experience and my lessons, and by maintaining that learner mindset, making mistakes and learning from them. We've developed all of our key line managers from more junior roles, and we've developed them to understand how to make good decisions and how to be a leader. They don't all have to have that, the perfect suit, the perfect degree from the right university. It's about the right personality, the right culture, the right, mission for what they want to do with their business function. So for me and for all of our staff, I think it comes back to, knowing who you want to be in the business and remembering that mission. A mission statement isn't just a line, a
Mm-hmm.
tagline. It's really got to be something that you live every day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually something that we've heard a couple of times recently. We're speaking with Lauren Oakes, who is the recently exited Megaphone, a major marketing agency here in Australia, and that was exactly the same piece of advice that she had to give was be more interested in the culture that you are creating rather than, sometimes you bring in a hire that you think is going to tick all the boxes and solve all your problems.
Yep.
They've got the right degrees, and they come in and actually crush your culture. And it's the difference between a happy workforce, a happy team that is getting things done, and feeling
Yep.
discontented in their works. That's
That's a
interesting.
key point. And I think that's one of the things that I've probably failed at most in business, to answer your previous question in a different way. One of the
Right.
mistakes I've made, not not hearing and listening to the feedback when there is a cultural problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, it gets to a point very quickly that, everyone's heard that analogy, the one rotten egg, for example. But, you know, it reflects on you as a leader even if that person doesn't report into you, if they're a major cultural problem, if they're causing issues for other staff members, if they're breaking your culture and you don't do something about it, effectively that's you that's breaking the culture.
Right.
And I never thought about it from that perspective. The board did a 360 review on me about a year and a half ago, and there was a particular topic that was brought up with HR, and it was a topic that I hadn't solved for two specific staff members that I'd selected to do my 360 review. And here's me sitting there thinking I'm going to get this glowing review on my performance. And, a lot of it was positive,
Yeah.
but some of the constructive feedback was if you don't manage that culture, it implodes on you. And the
Right.
people are the business. So it's got to be what you put first as a CEO in 2025. I mean, people and culture can't just be palmed off to an HR manager. It's got to be led by the leader.
Yeah, right. A great piece of advice. We're kind of coming to the end of our time together. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Specifically, could you recommend one book, podcast, or a speaker that has applied to founders, early stage leaders, something that you think would be beneficial? Has there been one piece of media that has really helped in your career?
Yeah, it's probably the guy I mentioned earlier, Simon Sinek. I think he's an incredible public speaker and he's very passionate about the why people do what they do. It always struck a chord with me. I was a marketing graduate initially, and then I've almost become the anti-marketer because
Right.
we lead everything with less traditional. Look, obviously, everything we do is still marketing and sales. We just do it with research and education. That is our sales and marketing channel, and we amplify that message with traditional marketing. But it's a sort of a different way to think about sales and marketing. And he probably was one of the early people that about 10, 12 years ago started me questioning, the ideas and rules I'd learned in university and made me, really want to question how I wanted to do things in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. For sort of going back a question, because it's something that I actually am really curious about your answer to. As far as you've said that you've had positive mentors, you've had negative mentor experiences along the way. How have you gone about? What would your advice be for finding the right mentor for you, for other founders who might be listening to this?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I don't know if I have the answer for you. I mean, being that I've had good and bad experiences,
Yeah.
honestly, the best ones have found me
Yeah.
organically. When you're on a journey and you're passionate about your journey, people are drawn to your why. They want to do, people that have similar values, people that like the reason why you're doing what you're doing and the problem that you're solving with your business will be drawn to you and you'll
Mm-hmm.
find them. You might not realize they're your mentor, but you'll
Right.
feel, one of my shareholders, who is now my chairman, so he won't mind me sharing, Jeff Sam, who's a legend in the healthcare industry. I presented to him for investment about 6 years ago at a hotel in Sydney, introduced by a broker in Melbourne, a lovely guy, and he just loved my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And he put a couple of $100,000 into the company back when we were like seed funding, and every year he constantly, invested more money. And I found myself organically calling him for advice on different topics.
Right.
It was never pre-organized. I've had boards over the years try to push me down the path of more professional mentorship with people that were their people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the number one thing is got to be your person. You can't be gifted a mentor from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to organically develop that relationship. And then I suppose the other part to your question is when it goes wrong, whether that be someone of influence in your business or a mentor. It might not be a nice answer, but you've just got to play the long game. You
Mm-hmm.
can't keep everyone happy. You've got to be true to your responsibility for your business, your shareholders, and your role. But if you've got a disruptive person, you've just got to outlast them by, not picking fights. And unfortunately, that means sometimes you have to take a little bit of pain. But what I have dealt with different challenging personalities that I've come across that have wanted part of our business or wanted to be involved, you just have to make sure that you're adding value. If you're adding value, you're the one that will outlast them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Are there people in your sphere, I suppose, that you would, I don't know if you'd consider yourself their mentor, but they would consider you their mentor? Is there anyone that in your space that you fill that role for also? I mean, I guess people come in and out, but
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've gone from being a young guy in fashion to now being a published researcher of probiotic clinical trials. So while I don't have a science degree, I've been involved in so many clinical trials and have my names attached to them now that effectively makes me an expert on the subject. I do speaks, big big companies ask me to come in and do talks to their people on mental health,
Mm-hmm.
on the gut-brain axis, because we've done 3 clinical trials in that area using probiotics for supporting mental health. I do a lot of outreach work for vitiligo, so one of my
Mm-hmm.
autoimmune diseases, which is a skin pigment issue. For a long time, I've done outreach work with people dealing with the mental health effects of the skin pigment issue, vitiligo. And then I suppose more recently, taking senior leadership roles on industry boards
Mm-hmm.
has probably given me a bit more of a leadership perspective. And what I've found bizarre is companies, CEOs from big companies that have had decade-long corporate experience are actually coming to me for advice on matters like political issues and topics as well. So it's sometimes you get a bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, why would they want to ask me?
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose when you've got a track record of solving insurmountable problems, people then start to realize that they might be able to learn something from you. So, yes, there are a few people I probably mentor within the organization and friends externally on business and things unofficially.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more that general um, magnetic effect that exists when you become a subject matter expert, that people want your advice.
Yes, absolutely. So also, I guess that means then that we know that at every level, imposter syndrome is still a factor. I don't think we've spoken to anybody so far on this podcast on the business game who says, "Oh no, I feel great every day. I just feel fine." Of course, people want to talk to
Yeah, I was
me.
texting one of my senior managers on the flight home from Brisbane last night, and I was telling a story about something that happened that day, and a couple of very significant executives from very significant companies in our industry, 20, 30 times larger than our business, asking for my advice, and that, sharing that's like, well, why should I even have an opinion? Why would they even want to know what I have to say? And it was quite funny getting the feedback from, one of my senior staff members saying, Blair, if you've got imposter syndrome, then, how the hell is the rest of us going to survive? Like, you got to know who you
Yeah.
are and
Yeah,
just be
right.
confident in it. But it's also a fine line because there's no room for arrogance either in business. Like, you've got to be able to add value without, forcing your opinion on people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, this has been a lovely chat. Thank you so much for all of your insights. There's so much in there also on culture and fostering culture in your business that I think is going to be really valuable to a lot of people. It's some of the questions that we get most often. So thank you so much for taking the time, Blair, to spend your afternoon with us here on the Business Game. Tell the audience where people can find and connect with you online.
I've kind of signed off on all social media other than LinkedIn. So I do have a LinkedIn profile, which is just my name, just Blair Norfolk. But, within our business is the best way to connect with us. So, our products are around the country. And if people want to learn more about probiotic science or what our products can do for them, you can reach out to the company, Biome or Activated Probiotics. And quite often they'll end up on the phone to me because as a startup founder, you can't help being too involved in customers. So
that's incredible. So even all these years down the line, if you would like to connect with Blair Norfolk, just call Biome and eventually you'll get him. That's what we're taking from
maybe
this.
we'll see if my PA lets that get through. But I think probably the last note I'd leave on and advice that I've probably had from a few really good mentors is never lose touch with your customer. On that note, you've got to, we're in pharmacy and medical clinics. I always make sure I get out on the road and visit our customers. Business's information, you've got to know what's going on out there. And if you don't have up-to-date information on what's going on out there, then, you're kind of dead in the water. So that's probably a good note to leave it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Blair. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Game. We will pop all your information in the liner notes and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
To help support our continued mission to provide free, best-in-class advice from the world's most compelling business leaders, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. See you on Saturday. Thanks for tuning in to The Business Game. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, TraffTrack, for powering today's episode. And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle.